The Nuggets are relaxed and confident at practice, which is easy because they don't even know who they're playing yet. We'll talk about who they might play, the matchups, how that goes. Plus, we'll talk about the other Western Conference playoff matchups and what we think the playoffs look like by the end. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. We appreciate you joining us on whatever platform that you're on, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or joining us on the old YouTube channel. Best way for you to support the show, hit the like and subscribe button, turn on notifications. You can join the show and join folks like, oh, wow, we got lots of folks jumped in here. Our 5555, I got to get this right. He's in here enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Five fives.
555-ish is in here. Evan McKee, Jar Slime, that's quite a name. Carlos Romero, Philippe Nikolivsky is hanging out with us. Lots of folks. We appreciate you guys making us part of your day. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares from DMVR. Why are you laughing?
I just love that there's you have to say let's ride. It's
enjoy that. Don't know why. That's funny. It doesn't seem funny to me. I'm Matt Moore. I'm senior NBA writer for the Action Network. He's Adam Mares, DMVR, pre and post game show over at DMVR, daily shows, all sorts of great content. Check it out, DMVR. It's the place to be for all of your coverage of the Avs and the Nuggets playoff runs. Check out the DMVR bar. It's the place to go if you want to watch games, if you want to go to a sports bar. It's a true sports bar. I want to commend you for that. The DMVR bar feels like an actual sports bar. And that's like really important, that sometimes there's these places that like, it's a sports bar. And what that means is there's 4 TVs and
nachos.
Yeah. So like DMVR is a true sports bar for the true Colorado sports fan. On today's show, we'll talk about practice, which again, I was not able to be at because I've literally recorded 9 podcasts this week. And I was like, I'm going to go on Friday. And then they canceled practice. I feel confident it was just to spite me. Like that feels like a personal attack on me and not just because they practiced for 2 days. Oh, also we could start here. We're also going to get to which player has the advantage between the 2 matchups the Nuggets will face, depending on who wins Friday. We'll go into that. And we're going to talk about the other playoff series in the Western Conference and get an idea of where the 2 of us think this shakes out. I have a take for you as soon as he canceled practice. So he canceled practice. Malone canceled practice yesterday or for today.
To be fair, I had heard they weren't practicing on like Wednesday. I don't know if this affects your.
Oh, that's a bummer. Theory. Yeah, well, it does. I think probably. Let me put it this way: if practice had sucked the first 2 days, then Malone would have been like, "Nope, we gotta get another one in. You guys didn't do it. You guys didn't bring it, so we're gonna have to do another one." And instead, like Malone was beaming about how good practice was. The vibe was good. The guys were locked in. They were energized. So Malone's in a good place. So he cancels practice on Friday. So they're gonna go out on Friday, and then they're going to come into practice on Saturday, and it's going to be terrible, and he's going to be so mad, and I can already see this happening. I can already see pretty disappointed with today's practice, to be honest with you, on Saturday. I can already see it coming. Can you?
No, I'm going to disagree with you for one reason.
Okay.
So being at practice yesterday, incredible vibes, everybody up, including, by the way, Nikola Jokic. So somebody said they saw you drinking a coffee. Hold on, I have to break it for our audio listeners. They saw Matt drinking a coffee, and somebody in the comments said, no Red Bull. But what do you know? Matt is drinking coffee and Red Bull at the moment, alternating between the 2. Absolute legend. No, but the vibes are up at practice. And, Michael Malone, both days, has hung around and talked to the media for extended period. In fact, yesterday, Matt, was the first time I've ever walked out on Michael Malone. I had stuff to do. I could only talk for half an hour before I had to go. And part of me, I've always said, you can tell how practice is going by how Michael Malone is with like the media. When it's a bad practice, he just does not want to talk to anyone. He wants to get right back to his office or whatever. And when he's feeling good about things, he'll hang out. And both days he's just felt really good. And to me, I'm like reading that as, hey, I think this team is confident. Michael Malone said as much. The players said as much. And even Nikola Jokic being lighthearted and joking around with people yesterday. You know how much he hates doing media, but even he was cracking jokes. So
it's really good. I'm glad. And like, this was my thing is like, I asked him, I was like, do you think you'll enjoy the playoffs more? Like, are you looking forward to the playoffs? Are you excited for it? And, he no-sold me, but now he's here. And it seems like, yeah, like he does. Like, I just think he enjoys high level basketball.
Nikola?
Yeah.
Oh, I asked him exactly about this. Like, is it more fun being in the playoffs than the regular season? And, he basically said yes to this idea of like, yeah, it's just more entertaining. It just means something more. So I think there is something to that. With Nikola, I do think he gets bored a lot during the regular season. So, we'll see.
Anybody else talk yesterday?
Who else did we get yesterday? We got Michael Porter Jr. Not a whole lot, I didn't think, from him. Not really anything from him. I did ask him, ask both guys what a championship would mean to them. And I liked actually Nikola's answer on this one because he said it means you're the best team in the world at that moment, which I loved. Or he's like, that means he didn't say the best team. He said you're the best at that moment. Which I kind of like because there's a lot of talk of this MVP or whatever. And I feel like with Nikola, that was a moment of like, no, the best is the one that wins. Like we play a game. And if you win, you're the best. All this other stuff is just sort of a, opinion based thing. But then was asked like, is that something you think about? And he said, no, actually, I just think about the next game. And I honestly take him at face value for this. It's not that I'm sure he's dreamed about being a champion and all those different things. But I've always said one trait about Nikola that I think is good from this like personality or psychology standpoint is I do think Nikola is very present. And that's probably part of why he hates the regular season is he can't, it may probably in many ways see it as a thing that leads to another thing. He probably just sees it as this is dumb. This is boring. But I do take him at face value that I think Nikola just looks at, all right, we have a game coming up on Sunday. I haven't even thought about game 2, let alone game 16.
Can I tell the bird story?
He's a bird?
Yeah, can I tell that story?
Sure.
So we're in the locker room and TJ McBride is like, we game plan questions sometimes. Like that's what we do is like we get together and like, hey, I want to ask this question. How do I ask this?
Yeah.
Particularly
yesterday, me and Singer sitting there kind of crafting our
yeah, like you gotta like it's good to bounce it off of people because like Singer's been really good about letting me know like that's too complicated, you're gonna lose them. And he's right. Like I've lost guys on questions, so he's right. TJ is trying to come up with a question and he's like, I want to ask Nikola about like how like he saw this and like what the mental adjustment was. I was like, he doesn't have mental adjustment. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, he's a bird. He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, he's a bird. Like birds do everything by instinct. Like right. There's no like neural pathway cognitive process there. Birds don't problem solve. Yeah. They're instinctual creatures. I was like, he's a bird. And right. So like, this is part of it, but it does pose an interesting question of, can a bird get bored? Like now I'm like wondering like, are there birds in my backyard that are just like, okay, another day, just going to chirp and fly around and hit this bird feeder 2-3 times. And that's what
he's almost like, not to get too, you're going bird nerd on me. I could out bird nerd you all day. He's a little bit like a falconer's bird, okay. Where I don't think he'll get bored when he's back in Serbia, retired, doing his horse thing. I think he'll actually know exactly what he's doing. But right now, he has a job to do, and he probably does get bored a little bit with the job sometimes. I like this question, though, man. I want to get to it in the first segment. At what point a lack of prep time a disadvantage for the 1 seed? I mean, Malone has brought this up twice now. Which I don't love, by the way, him acknowledging. I just don't like when he does these.
I brought it up first. I will say that I was the first one to bring this to him. I did this. Gosh, I think maybe 10 days ago, whenever one of the home games a couple weeks ago, because he told me in the past, he was like, I was like, when do you guys start working on playoff prep for opponent? And he was like, they've been working on it, Matt. It's been like 3 weeks. And this was like 2 weeks before the season ended. And I was like, okay. So I asked him, I was like, all right, obviously scout team's been working on playoff prep for scouting reports for all your possible opponents this whole time. You're not going to know until the Friday before. What's that look like? And he was like, it really is a disadvantage. He's like, you want the 1 seed, you want the home court, but you don't know what you're going to do.
So here's the thing. I take him at face value for that. I do believe it's a disadvantage in some ways. And I do believe that he feels that he's at a great disadvantage. But I was thinking about this the other day, and it would be a good question to raise to him on Saturday, tomorrow's practice. there is one big advantage I think you get from being in this position, and that is teams don't show their hand very often in the regular season. They play regular season basketball. You find out what their core principles are. But in the playoffs, teams do start to show their hand. This is why every round, the deeper you go into the playoffs, the more teams have revealed their little secrets, tricks, and things that they're going to do. And I do wonder if getting a chance, say it's, both of these teams obviously playing a second play-in game. I do wonder if it's a better scout. The 2 games you get off of these 2 teams in the play-in are better than the 10 games you would have had from a non-play-in team to scout, for your matchup. I kind of think there's probably a little something to that.
That's a fair point. I think it's a good idea. Part of this comes into the idea of there's kind of a double-edged sword here where the team comes in a little bit more hungry, I think, because they've Wolves or Thunder have been playing, like the Thunder will have played in 2 do or die games. Wolves will have played in 2 do or die games, or 3 if they win. Like they had to win Sunday versus Pelicans. They had to win versus the Lakers. They lost. They had to win tonight. Right. So like they're in that kind of battle mode. And I always think that creates a hungrier team coming out of it. It does provide less time for you to kind of deep dive into. I think it's not even deep dive. I think the things that you need to do. It's more about if you have 3 days of practice to hammer in principles. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do this. Like to hammer, like you don't want to help off of Isaiah Joe. Like you don't want to help off of this guy. Those kind of dynamics to the repetition you lose. On the other end of it, it is double-edged sword because the 8th team does not have to, they have to focus entirely on these games. They do not have time to prep for you. So some of these 8 seed teams that have come in and caused problems, it's because they had a week to be like, okay, we know we've got this thing that we can poke at. And they don't have that immediately. They may play more loose and free and chaotic in the first game, but I think it hurts them over the course of the series, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. The other thing is just if you look at these teams, the stars have performed well. Shea, Towns, they've had good games, but some of the guys on the periphery, the secondary stars, the young guys and the role players have shown a little nerves. And I do wonder, Nikola has started series a little bit slow. I do wonder if it's like, hey, he needs to win game 1 for the team. Let Aaron Gordon settle into the playoffs. Let KCP and Bruce Brown settle into the playoffs. Go out there and dominate game 1, no matter who it is. And then hopefully on Wednesday, your teammates are there to kind of help carry the load more.
All right. On the other side, we'll get into the 2 different matchups. We'll go through which one is better for the Denver Nuggets starter by starter. We'll do that on the other side. But first, I need to tell you about eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part that you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Yeah, apparently I have upset the bird nerds. They're like, no, birds problem solve. Crows are very intelligent. There's another person that say birds absolutely problem solve. So I will do the research on this. Okay, I will own up and I will go do the reading. I will do the work and learn about how birds are more. I wasn't necessarily talking about intelligence, but more cognitive processing than I gave them credit for.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's just like birds are like fish. There's a wide variety of them. There's a lot of different types. You're talking about, maybe like some swallows or something that just kind of moved. Who knows?
Sure. Let's go through the different options here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the starters. Let's start with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. In the playoffs, he will either face, since he will not be facing Jaden McDaniels, his 2 options against the Minnesota Timberwolves and Oklahoma City Thunder. He probably will not get the Lou Dort assignment offensively, and he probably will not be guarding Lou Dort on the defensive end either. I would imagine KCP takes Shea in the Thunder matchup. Is that accurate?
For sure. I mean, you would have to assume.
And let's talk about the Wolves. Does he get the Anthony Edwards assignment or does it AG?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, the Timberwolves are by far the harder team to project how they're going to match up. I mean, first of all, what's the starting lineup game number 1 if it's the Minnesota Timberwolves from Minnesota?
Conley. They're not starting.
And Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns are locks, as is Conley. So those 3 are locks. And then you're wondering, are they going to go with Prince? Or are they going to go with Kyle Anderson? Are they going to go with Gobert? Or are they going to play small and move everybody else over?
I think they go big to start.
2 centers. I think Aaron Gordon then draws the Karl-Anthony Towns assignment. I think that's the smartest thing you could probably do.
You think who draws the Anthony Edwards? Sorry.
I think Karl-Anthony Towns and Aaron Gordon tries to guard Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah, you have to put AG on Towns.
And then then you have Jokic on Gobert. And
okay, let me ask. Actually, could the Nuggets do what other teams have done to them and flip it and put AG on Gobert and put Jokic on Towns?
I don't know what that gives you.
I guess it's more spacing, so that's kind of the concern. Is that
defensive spacing?
Like in terms of not defensive spacing. Like I'm asking, what's the downside to putting? I would think that putting Jokic on. I guess not. You're right. Yeah, because I guess Gobert is like less of a workload for Jokic, but they're just gonna put him in 1-5 so much. Would you rather put him in 1-5 or 1-4? I think is the kind of the question in terms of.
I mean, I think it's a hard. I think guarding Gobert on those pick and rolls is going to be the better option.
Okay. All right. So
especially if there's like Kyle Anderson and Prince out there, whoever's guarding that guy is probably helping off quite a bit.
So I think. All right. So Conley, Gobert, Towns, Ant. Boy, this is interesting. I think they probably start Kyle. I think Kyle probably starts in the place of Jaden. So does KCP take slow-mo then?
No, I mean, he probably goes on Anthony Edwards, I would guess.
Yeah, that's going to be tough for him because that's a really big body. That's Ant's got a lot of
I honestly wonder if that's a series where Denver might be forced to make a few adjustments just to match up a little bit better. I mean, you don't have to obviously see what happens and how they play, but that's one where Denver might have to get a little creative.
Let's do AG. And we talked about this with him guarding Towns. How do you like the Towns matchup for him on both ends of the floor, honestly?
He becomes the centerpiece of this matchup for me. I mean, he's really got to do a great job defensively on Towns. I've always thought Towns, I mean, he can go down to the post and outpost him, although I think Jokic is going to be there and help side if he's guarding Gobert. So you have a lot of help there. But out on the perimeter, I've always thought the way to guard Towns is to use a wing on him, somebody that can move is better because he's really good at attacking closeouts and, pick and pop and shooting or attacking. And I just think Gordon can cover that space against him. So I like it defensively. And then offensively, I do think there's going to be a lot of, can he either draw fouls by being so aggressive going to the rim, which we know he can do. And if he's healthy and motivated, he can do this. But he probably also has to knock down some corner threes specifically because if they put Gobert on him, Gobert's just going to try to dare him to make some threes.
So you kind of expect them to put Gobert on AG.
Someone threw this out to me. Was it you? The idea of maybe they would play, if they do play Kyle Anderson on him and use both wings or both bigs out elsewhere. I mean, for one, it's a weird look. It's a different look. It might force Denver to make an adjustment at some point. But to be honest with you, Minnesota is one of those teams that I think less about their starting lineup and how they match up and more about their blended lineups, because I think that they would probably start that way, but go quickly to Cat on the bench with Gobert guarding Jokic and then try to bring Cat in against Denver Nuggets' bench to really dominate those minutes.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if they're trying to make the Cat minutes not with Jokic, if they're trying to stagger those, how does Denver counter that defensively?
Yeah, so I was just about to mention that. I looked this up. That's actually what they've done in the regular season. This is last 10 games. Ant is the early rotation out. He comes back in to end the first quarter, goes through the second quarter, and then doesn't come back in until late second. That's what the rotation that they've been on with him. So, Jokic has to, this is what I expect anyway, but Jokic has to play all of first, all of third. That's just going to have to be pretty standard.
But I'm saying, does Towns play the start of the second, start of the fourth?
Yes.
So that's one area where you could say, okay, this could be tough for Denver because you're not going to play the true bigs on him. You're not going to put DeAndre Jordan out there. Nope. I think he'll get cooked. And then so it's okay, Zeke Naji, but can Zeke Naji guard him? Can you do Aaron Gordon small ball? I don't think so. I think that's actually one that's a little bit tricky.
I think he can. He's not great. I'll say this. He's not great in the post. He's very good at pump fake, drive, finish, draw contact.
It's his preferred style for sure.
Yeah. So like, I think in that respect, you might honestly be better off going small. I think you might be able to get away with that. Like
Joe asked a good question here. TC's got to know the soul of every Nugget. So how does that help him? Like Chris Finch and Tim Connelly obviously have a great relationship from working together here in Denver. I mean, that's not a coach that's going to tell Tim to go back upstairs. That's what I think that would say, hey man, you know these guys. What do you think? Where are the pressure points for them mentally? And
Tim's also, unlike some GMs, I would say it's a pretty even split. Tim's a gym rat. Like Tim likes hanging out at practice. Like he likes being in the gym. So he will be in the gym for whenever they are practicing and will be giving input. Like there will definitely be input that he'll give on these types of things. I don't think that I don't think like magic stuff, but like stuff with AG that they put on the report before they traded for him, where they're like, well, this is a problem. Like there will be an edge there that he will be able to provide intel on. But I'll also say this, like Chris Finch has been coaching in the NBA a while. Like as they will have a good staff report on Denver and know all these things. This is one of the things that I guess everyone says is just like, we know all the deals. My kind of perception on this is that everyone knows everyone in the NBA and they know the scouting report. It's getting guys to believe it and to pay attention to it. It's getting coaches to commit to those kind of tactical advantages, I think, is a bigger challenge. I want to get your thoughts on Jokic and Gobert, because Nikola's, one of the best players in the world. The 2000 and the bubble season, Gobert did really well on him, and Jokic eventually won out. Since
the
then,
bubble season also had the 7, man. I don't know if I agree with that.
That's why I remember from you saying in that series.
He had the 7 was the year of the bubble. Jokic, what did he have? 40-some points, like Sombor shuffle to win it?
Yeah. No, but like my point here is like, what I'm trying to like, am I wrong on this? That like, I felt like you were saying Gobert played him really well before they started to turn the series around.
I think it was before. Well, I mean, Jokic played poorly in that. I mean, he played well in game 1. He played poorly in games 2 and 3. But again, I've always said those games were a little bit anomalous to me. I almost felt like the defense was so bad they moved Michael Porter out and then Jokic dominates. But I do think that he had solved him prior to the bubble.
Okay, so this is interesting because I want to go back and look this up, because I remember there being a game where Gobert had done really well on him, and then like,
it was game 3. Gobert.
No, it was before. It was before the playoffs.
Oh,
I'm looking it up. They won. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think he was solved before that. I mean, that's why the bubble was so concerning. Is you're like, oh my god, Jokic has handled this one, and now he's not. But then he handled it again. So you're like, okay.
Okay, so you're not concerned. Like, what is your even beyond like concern? It's Jokic. I don't know how you can be concerned about him. What's your just like analysis of the matchup with Rudy?
I think Rudy is very comfortable going up against Rudy Gobert.
I'm more talking about like how does he beat him?
What do you mean? Like
post up
in all variety of ways. I think. I mean, it's the floaters, it's the post ups, it's everything. I mean, honestly, they're probably not going to put Rudy straight on him other than in those staggered lineups because they'd rather use him as this floating rim protector. But I think Jokic has kind of solved even that part of it. We all remember the game where they tried to put Bogdanovic, a different type of player, smaller player, but they tried to put Bogdanovic on him and use Rudy as the float guy. And I think that's the game where he had 47. So he's put up some monster numbers on both types, Rudy on him and Rudy roaming.
The OKC matchup is even better for him. The Thunder don't have a center.
The reason I think the Oklahoma City matchup, Denver is going to have a hard time guarding because they don't guard the drives well. But I do think that them not having a center, but them also not having really that good of power forwards that can punish Aaron Gordon, that I just feel like you're going to win both the 4 and the 5 battle by a lot. That even if you lose the guard battle, which Murray needs to step up and make some plays, he needs to handle Dort or whatever. But I don't imagine that you're going to lose the guard battle as much as you're going to win the front court battle.
They're listing 6'9" Arkansas forward, 240-pound rookie Jalen Williams at center currently.
And I kind of like him, but
I love him at Arkansas. Woo pig, but
I like it's like the type of guy that is good against most bigs.
Yeah. Like after they traded Muscala to Boston, like they just don't have like. I wonder if they dust off Ousmane Dieng.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna try and just play pace and space and just like space everything out. I want to ask you this: how do you feel like Jokic plays in zone?
The Nugget zone has not been all that effective. I mean, they'll
No.
probably mix it in against Oklahoma City, and honestly, they'll probably need their zone to be effective in pockets. So they'll need it to play better, and I think it can. As with everything with their defense, focus and execution is key.
For the OKC matchups, do you think KCP goes against Shea or Giddy?
That's such an interesting question. I think there is a world in which the OKC matchup you kind of dare Shea to beat you. Shea's had a lot of 30-plus point games and losses this year. He's done it a lot. So it's not that it's the worst strategy. And they do have guys that Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, and Josh Giddey who can beat you, because then all of a sudden you have a 3-headed monster or even a 2-headed monster. And I do wonder if there's value in saying, no, we're going to do this and that and try to take away from those other guys. Nonetheless, the Shea question is real. If you remember, I don't know if this is real or not because it was only like one game. Vlatko Čančar did a really, really good job against Shea earlier this year. Yep. And I don't think it will be something Denver tries in game one, but his combination of just like length and smarts, Shea is a guy that doesn't necessarily blow by people. He inches by people. He like left rights by people. And I just wonder if there is something to putting a stronger, bigger guy who just keeps his hands up, if that's like part of how you beat Shea.
I think I like KCP on Shea, Jamal on Jalen, and Gordon on Giddey. I think maybe Jamal. Like, here's the question: like, who are you going to put Jamal on in that series?
It's a tough one for Jamal defensively. He has to guard somebody.
Like,
you got to have out there a lot when Jamal's on.
Here's the counter: if they don't play any centers, you know what they play a lot of? Good guards. Like it's Giddey and Shea. And
I'll tell you, the Oklahoma City one I think is a Christian Brown and a Peyton Watson series. I think Peyton Watson can even get into the playoffs, in round one and maybe even in game one in that one, because again, Shea requires length and discipline. And I actually think that's a sneaky thing about Peyton. I think he's pretty disciplined for a rookie. So I would expect him to play if the matchup's OKC.
I think one of the advantages for Denver in the OKC series is they don't Lou Dort doesn't have anybody to shut down.
Jamal Murray, his Canadian brother.
Yeah, I guess I feel like
I think that's a good matchup. I think that Jamal has a hard job. If it's the Thunder, Jamal has a very hard first job.
Who has let's do MPJ. That's a really interesting one in this matchup.
He has a hard job too, because he's going to have to he'll be switched out onto these guys. I mean, they'll attack him. But here's the thing. I was just talking about length. MPJ versus Shea might not be the worst. Like, I don't think Jamal's going to guard Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So MPJ getting switched onto him, I think I'd be curious to see if he has any resistance there. I think he might. I actually think he would be a better defensive player against Shea than Jamal Murray by a good amount.
MPJ starts on Dort, and then they run 1-3 pick and roll to get MPJ on Shea. Does that sound right?
Maybe he starts on Giddey. Maybe I don't know who they would match him up against. Maybe you just honestly, there's maybe a thing where you just put him on Shea, because teams do run all of that action, and maybe you do and try to shade a very specific direction to be better prepared with your rotations.
I wouldn't, just because OKC is the one team, I think, that has the authority. Like, I feel like Dagnall will immediately be like, oh, no, we're spread 5-1 ISO. Like, he will – I feel like they are very –
if you do that, does Denver just overhelp off of their specific guys that they want to funnel the ball to, and then Shea just ends up kicking? I mean, this is the thing. It's like with Denver – can Aaron Gordon knock down shots? Yes, but you don't want a team to make that too loud. You don't want to make it a team where it's like, yeah, that's your number 1, 2, and 3 read is Aaron Gordon for 3.
Yeah. Which series is better for Bruce Brown?
Man, that's a good question too. He might be too small for Oklahoma City. All of their guards are so big.
I feel like he's too small for either series. I feel like he's going to have problems.
I mean, you got Conley that he could.
Yeah, I feel like other than that, it's going to be problems versus.
Well, they played McLaughlin too, which is more the bench thing. They have 2 small point guards.
Yeah.
maybe you can find one.
He could definitely match versus McLaughlin.
I'll tell you what, Shea, though, never made any Nugget player look as bad as Bruce Brown. He just does not see him. He gets to his spots and shoots right over him.
Yep. Okay. All right. On the
bottom line, though, is that Jokic should be able to dominate, especially Oklahoma City Thunder, so that all those other margins shouldn't matter. He should be able to get to the line. He should be able to get to the paint. He should be able to get to the rim.
Look, I'll say this. If Jokic is the best player in every series, I think Denver wins. Like, they're good enough to be within range of all these teams, and the margin might literally just be like how good Jokic is. And he's going to be great. It's a matter of how great, right? Like, that's a lot of it. Oh, or Aaron Gordon misses a bunch of threes and free throws. That's the other kind of worrisome part. On the other side, I want to get Adam's thoughts on the other playoff series and what we think the Western Conference looks like. We'll cover that on the other side. First, I need to tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, even at Rocky Stadium. And there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. Don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen every day. Every dayers, tomorrow on the show, we will preview the Nuggets first round series in even more detail once we know, who they're actually going to play. We'll have a Saturday episode for you breaking down that matchup going into Sunday's game 1. Check that out on tomorrow's show. Adam, I want to get into some of these other questions about the rest of the Western Conference. I want to get your thoughts on these other series. Let's start with the 4-5 with the Suns and the Clippers. If Paul George was playing, I would flat out be betting the Clippers to win the series. I would flat out be taking the Clippers to win. I would be playing alternate lines on like how many games they're going to win in. I love this matchup for the Clippers, but Paul George is a big enough of an absence. I think it's going to be tough. One thing that's going to be very difficult, I think, for the Clippers is the resistance to DeAndre Ayton kills them in offensive rebounding when they play. And the Clippers' best chance is to go small ball spread it out, 5 out, and switch everything. And that means you're going to get killed on the glass usually. So I think that's going to be a battle for them. The Suns are probably going to win this series because Paul George doesn't play, but I will tell you, I do think this series goes at least 6 games.
I like that. This one's hard for me to project. I do think there's something to the Suns, as good as they've been that way in the dumbest part of the season. It's probably the least revealing. I think when I went through this for Locked On NBA yesterday, like preparing all the series, just kind of looking at it, you know who my X factor was?
Who?
Bones Highland.
Yeah.
And part of it is, I've talked about the Suns don't have depth. I don't necessarily love their bench. And while Bones is not exactly the most reliable guy, it is one of those ones where can you win the non-starter minutes? Because you're going to have one of KD or Booker or Chris Paul like on the court at all times. But it is like a less potent group you're going to have out there. And Bones Highland specifically probably just is not on the court at any moment when Devin Booker is. So as long as you don't have that liability, maybe defensively he's not as big of a mark. And if he comes out and makes some threes, that Suns bench I think can be vulnerable. So I'm with you. I wish Paul George was playing. I would be a lot more excited about this series. I do think that there's a really good chance this is Suns in 5. But you know what? Punch early and see what happens with this Suns team when they face adversity. Traditionally, they have not handled adversity well, Matt.
True. That's very true. They, I would say that they handled adversity in that Lakers series in 2021. They really.
Are you talking about the one when Anthony Davis got hurt?
Yeah, but Chris Paul got hurt first, and they could have.
I'm just saying, sure, but I'm just saying I'm not saying they handled adversity well in that one. The other team became nothing. The other team evaporated.
Terrence Mann's my guy in this matchup. His numbers are very good in the regular season versus the Suns in terms of net impact. And I really like his ability because this is like a really fascinating thing to me. The Suns have built their team to beat Denver. They have 3 centers and they only play centers. They do not go small. They can't go small. They don't have the capacity. I looked this up. KD's played 4 minutes total without one of Ayton, Biz, or Lawndale on the floor. And you can say like KD hasn't played that many games. True. But this is more like that matches with the roster construction, right? Like I want to make sure I wasn't missing like, oh, there's this lineup that they go to that usually they play centers, but they do go to this one. No, like They do not. They only play centers, and they only play drop centers, which means you can get those kinds of attacks on them, but you're going to have guards that can do it. The counter for this is whether or not the Clippers are like, I'm really curious to see whether Ty Lue is willing to be like, we're going to give up rebounds, but we got to beat this team with shooting. If he goes that route, I like their chances. If he keeps Zubac and Mace on the floor the entire time, I don't like their chances. I think they get beat. It's like, I will take Ayton and Biz versus Zoo and Mason when you have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant, right? So like that differential to me is really important.
You'll hate this one, but I do think there's a coaching advantage to the Clippers.
I don't disagree. No, I completely agree with that. I balance when it was like Ty Lue is like the best coach in the NBA. Well, no. But now it's like, yeah, no, he had a rough year, but I think he's got a really good chance in this series. He can outcoach Monty because Monty doesn't have as many options. Like the Clippers have infinite options. They just got to use them right. Let's go to 3-6. Kings Warriors. I think this is a short series. I think the Warriors win in 5.
On the table.
The matchup does not look good for them. Domantas Sabonis was a -17 in net rating in the 3 meaningful games between the two teams this season. And those were games that the Kings won. Like it's not good. Steph was a +15. A lot of this is just here's my read on the Warriors. My take on the Warriors is they're going to look like themselves again, but they're going to have to play so many minutes. They're going to be completely exhausted by the end because the starters can't rest the way that they used to be able to.
I just think the Warriors are a great team that, as like a lot of teams this year, didn't take the regular season all that seriously. Some of this was their hand being forced with injuries and unnamed absences. But I think they're an actually great team that has just enough guys for a playoff rotation. Just enough guys. DiVincenzo can play.
Yep.
Gary Payton can play.
Kuminga.
Like, what's that?
Kuminga
can play. Like I think they have 9 guys they can go to and 8 guys when it gets real. And that matters. And their starting lineup is obviously as good as anyone. And I think that the Kings rely so heavily on their starting lineup as well that it sucks when your best punch can be matched by the other team's best punch and they have more experience. So I'm with you, but I'm rooting for the Kings, man. I'd love the Kings. I'd love for the Kings to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
They've also just never been. This is like the least experience versus the most experience.
That's why I like Golden State so much in Game 1 is that everyone's going to be like, but that crowd, imagine how great. Do you remember the Raptors in 2014 when it was like Jurassic Park is going wild, and then they lost the game to the Nets. It's a lot of pressure.
Oh, it's going to be the same thing. But I will say this also, not inconsequential that this series is 80 miles from each other. You talk about a veteran team that basically gets to play with very little travel. I mean, what is the flight from Sacramento to Golden State? 20 minutes?
Yeah, it's an 87-minute differential between the two cities. 87 miles.
87 miles. So that flight is probably 15 to 20 minutes. And for a veteran team, that's like a godsend.
Yeah.
Not a short flight. Lakers to Memphis, which I, again, think makes a little bit of an impact in that series.
Oh, I can tell. I see your excitement here. So 2-7 Grizzlies, Lakers. I bet the Lakers. I think that they win this series. I'm curious to know why you feel confident in Memphis.
Because the Lakers suck. I mean, that's why.
You're adding your bracket and you're back to being like, they're trash.
No, I'm telling you, part of me wishes they were with the Nuggets. I thought this, watching the game, I was like, you know what? I hope they lose this game. They look like so trash. But Dylan Brooks guarding LeBron James is at least difficult. Like LeBron fully healthy and the guy we remember him being would murder a player of Dylan Brooks' caliber. Like that's just not going to bother him. But this version of LeBron that could barely carry them in a play-in game against the Timberwolves, barely in overtime, down to the wire, down to the final seconds. I just think Dylan Brooks is going to be a guy that can at least give him problems. They have just way more talent outside of the top 2 guys. They then own the rest of the like good players in this series. The only thing that concerns me is their most important player, Jaren Jackson Jr., is foul prone. Yeah. The Lakers are very good at drawing fouls. So I do worry about that one piece of it. And it probably will affect a game or two enough to make this go to 5-6 or whatever. But I still think the Memphis Grizzlies win.
No, Brandon Clark is the differential for me. They can't get to their best lineup, which is BC at 4, Jackson at 5, small ball. That's going to be a bit of a problem versus this one. This is a lot of Xavier Tillman. That makes me nervous. JJ's Tripp's going to get in foul trouble, like you mentioned. they don't have
a good defender, though. I think, like, as much as he's not a great player, he reminds me of your guy, Wendell Carter.
Tillman. Yeah, I would agree. I don't know. I feel like foul trouble is going to be a thing. I am worried. One of the reasons I'm worried about this is that when Memphis gets in a super hype situation, like national TV versus the Lakers, they get out over their skis.
They get a little too hyped.
Yeah, like the whole thing of that Sunday game where they imploded with the Shannon Sharp thing. That sticks with me. They don't have a calming presence, and I think you need it. And I think you especially need it when you're facing the kind of adversity they're going to face with the foul trouble and how it's going to feel facing the Lakers. So I think the Lakers advance, and then Warriors-Lakers would be something. Grizzlies-Lakers would be something. Sorry,
I will say, I like this one right here. Memphis will win because D'Lo is an epic playoff underperformer.
Accurate.
And I think that the Lakers actually have a handful of these guys. Like, is Malik Beasley going to have a good series?
Yeah, that's a question.
I don't think he will.
You know who I think is going to have a good series, though? Is Jared Vanderbilt. I think Vando's going to have a great series.
But they also have the thing where you can hack a Vando in the clutch. Like, you have this clutch LeBron, Anthony Davis down those. What if you just hack a Vando?
True. That's true. Grizzlies' worst fourth quarter net rating in the league, minus 4.2. Something to keep an eye on. But before we get out of here, can I comment on something that came out today? Sierra Soe, who is a good friend of mine. She used to write at Hardwood Paroxysm, my old site. I've known her since she was a teenager. She's a really great human being. She was over the ringer, and her hot playoff take this year is the Nuggets will get bounced in the first round. It's totally okay for you to be like, that's ridiculous. Screw the haters. Like, that's totally fine. Just like advocating when somebody tells you like to come up with a hot playoff take, you're inherently going to say something that's going to make somebody mad. Like the whole thing, like, that's ridiculous. Of course it is. Like that's like the hot playoff take. Most writers, not talking heads, most writers think about these things a lot more probabilistically. So I would say, like, I would not hold that against Searit just because that was her option. She talked about the defense being bad. You know, Ryan tweeted that, like, since the All-Star break, the Nuggets defense has been better than XXXXX. I'm worried about the defense. Are you worried about the defense?
Sure. I mean, sure.
So I'm just saying, I don't think that
the Nuggets might have good defense against like the Thunder in the first round and terrible defense against the Suns. And people are like, see, the Nuggets are bad on defense. Yeah. When they play against some of the best offense.
Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
I mean, like, Nuggets have been bad on defense against the Warriors, against the Blazers, against Donovan Mitchell's Thunder, who were like top 5 in offense that year. Go figure.
Ted, not a CB and P Watt play though? Question mark. Look,
I hope so. Look, man, this is why part of me why I hope we play the Nuggets play the Thunder. I do think there's a chance that those two play more minutes, and I just would love to see that if they have it in the playoffs against those guys.
I agree. I will also say that the bar, like the curve is sharp in the playoffs for rookies, and a lot of good defenders have been like, oh, this is a whole other thing.
Are you talking about like first team all defense Herb Jones getting lit up by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Yeah. I mean, this is the thing about Shai is we might put P. Watt out there who plays perfect defense and still has no answer for him. Shai's good, man.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow on Saturday with a first round preview for the Nuggets. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Nuggets. If you are on YouTube, go to the channel, subscribe, and like. It is the best way for you to support the show. Check out all that stuff over at DNVR. I've got playoff previews in the Action Network app. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Nuggets.